ambush Jake.
Alright, picture this. It's December 19th, 2025. You're watching something most people once laughed off as impossible. Jake Paul actually steps into the ring with Anthony Joshua. And no disrespect to Jake, but in this imagined matchup, Joshua completely destroys him. We're talking about a 6th round knockout from massive knockdown. Jake's jaw is broken in 2 places. He's rushed into emergency surgery, has titanium plates put in, and ends up lying in a hospital bed with his jaw wired shut. It's a savage beating, the kind of loss that changes a fighter's entire career. But here's where things get truly wild, in a way only combat sports can deliver. Just 4 days later, on December 23rd, Jake Paul shows up on Impulsive Podcast. This is right after that nightmare loss. His jaw is still wired shut. He's barely recovered. And what does he do? He calls out Francis Ngannou. Not just a normal call out either. It's aggressive and disrespectful. Jake, still slurring his words from pain and surgery, claims Francis Ngannou has no chin. He even says Francis is low-key weak. It's an unbelievable level of confidence, almost straight up insanity, especially considering what Jake had just gone through days earlier.
That Francis kinda got no chin.
Now, let's really look at how ridiculous this sounds. Jake Paul, a YouTuber who just had his jaw completely shattered by Anthony Joshua, somehow believes he can beat Francis Ngannou. This is the same Francis Ngannou who is widely accepted as the hardest-hitting heavyweight in MMA history. His knockout highlight reel includes absolute monsters like Stipe Miocic, Alistair Overeem, and Cain Velasquez. This is a man with such insane punching power that he once hit Overeem so hard his mouthpiece flew all the way into the 5th row of the crowd. And Jake, who is still recovering from the first knockout loss of his career, truly thinks he can beat that guy. Let me be very clear about this. This isn't just confidence or trash talk. This might be one of the most delusional, reality-bending things ever said in the history of combat sports. But here's the crazy part. It could actually happen anyway, and there's a reason for that. Jake's entire case, the weak logic behind this call-out, comes down to one deeply flawed comparison. He claims that he lasted longer against Anthony Joshua than Francis Ngannou did, and that alone is what he's using to justify calling him out. So let's rewind to our imagined December 19th in Miami at the Casilla Center, streamed live on Netflix. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. The build-up to this fight was massive. For months, Jake had been non-stop in calling Joshua out, and eventually AJ gave in. This is a former 2-time heavyweight champion, an Olympic gold medalist, and one of the most dangerous punchers the sport has ever seen. This fight was supposed to be the biggest moment of Jake's career. He was 28 years old, a cruiserweight jumping up to heavyweight, coming in with a respectable 12-1 record. But here's the key point. He had never faced anyone even close to Anthony Joshua's level. When they stood next to each other, the size gap was shocking. Joshua weighed a solid 243 pounds, while Jake came in at 216 pounds. That's a 27 pounds difference. Joshua, standing at 6 feet 6 inches, completely towered over Jake at 6 feet 1 inch, giving him a 5 inches height advantage and a 6 inches reach edge. This wasn't just a bad matchup, it was a massive mismatch, and everyone knew it. Even the betting odds made that painfully clear. The reality was that Joshua came in as a massive favorite at 12-1. That means you have had to put down $1,200 just to make a small return on an AJ win. That's how one-sided expert opinion was going into the fight. Almost no one gave Jake a real chance, but to be fair to Jake, he did come in with a game plan. Even if it was clearly about survival, the plan was simple. Keep moving, circle the ring, clinch whenever possible, make the fight messy, and above all else, do not let Joshua land clean shots. And surprisingly, for a short time, it actually worked. In rounds 1 and 2, Jake stayed on the move, constantly circling, keeping his distance and avoiding real exchanges. It wasn't exciting at all, honestly, but it was effective because he was still standing. During round 2, the commentators even pointed out, with a bit of irony, that Jake had officially lasted longer than Francis Ngannou, who was knocked out by Joshua in the 2nd round of their real fight. Jake managed to survive into round 3. Rounds 3 and 4 looked much the same. Jake was awkwardly dropping to the canvas during clinches, and even grabbing Joshua's legs, basically trying to wrestle in the middle of a boxing match. Naturally, UFC fighters tore into him for it online. Diana Belbita famously tweeted, "Jake Paul shot more double legs in a boxing match than I did in my entire UFC career." Still, despite all of that, Jake kept pushing forward and somehow made it to round 5. And that's the moment when everything completely fell apart. In round 5, Joshua finally began landing real shots. A crushing punch to the body dropped Jake for the first knockdown. Jake managed to get back to his feet, but Joshua immediately followed with a sharp 1-2 combination that sent him down again for the 2nd knockdown. By the end of round 5, Jake was clearly in trouble. He was unsteady on his feet, badly hurt, breathing hard, and completely drained. Then came round 6. Joshua backed Jake into a corner and fired a brutal right hand that put him down for the 3rd time. Somehow, Jake dragged himself back up, but Joshua could see it was over. He threw another right hand, perfectly placed on the chin. Jake collapsed for the 4th knockdown, and this time, he couldn't beat the count. The fight was stopped at 1:31 of round 6. Jake Paul had just suffered the first knockout loss of his career, and it was a vicious one. He walked away with a double broken jaw, needed surgery the very next day, had titanium plates installed, and his jaw wired shut. He was forced to eat through a straw for weeks. Surprisingly, his first comments after the fight were calm and respectful. He said, "Man, that was good. Nice little ass whooping from one of the best to ever do it. I love this. I'm gonna come back, fight people my weight, and go for the Cruiserweight World Championship." Humble, respectful, fully accepting the loss. But then, just 4 days later, on Impulsive, the tough talk was back, and Jake brought up Francis Ngannou. Now, let's compare that made-up scenario with what actually happened in real life. The very real, very brutal fight between Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou took place on March 8, 2024, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. This was a heavyweight boxing match, and it was only Ngannou's second professional boxing fight ever. His first boxing appearance came against Tyson Fury in October 2023. In that fight, Francis completely shocked the world against all expectations. He dropped Fury in round 3 and came incredibly close to winning. He ended up losing by a controversial split decision. The performance stunned the entire boxing community. Because of that fight, Ngannou entered the matchup with Joshua full of confidence. He had already shown real boxing ability, proved he could handle elite competition, and still carried terrifying power. He truly believed he could compete with top-level boxers. Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, was coming off a knockout loss to Daniel Dubois and badly needed a statement win. He needed something dominant to rebuild his image. And Ngannou looked like the perfect opponent. A massive name, extremely dangerous, but still very inexperienced in boxing, with only 2 fights on his record. When the fight started, the tone was clear right away. In round 1, Ngannou fought cautiously, taking his time, while Joshua stalked him, staying patient, studying his movements, and slowly feeling him out. Then in round 2, Joshua finally opened up. He landed a crushing right hand that left Ngannou badly shaken. Seeing his chance, Joshua rushed forward and fired another heavy right that dropped Francis to the canvas. Ngannou managed to get back up, but Joshua stayed on him. He stepped in and landed a terrifying right hand that completely shut the lights off. Francis collapsed flat on his back, fully unconscious. The fight was officially stopped at 2:38 of round 2. It was Ngannou's first boxing loss by knockout, and it was brutally violent. He had to be helped out of the ring afterwards. So the reality is this. Anthony Joshua knocked out Francis Ngannou in round 2. In our hypothetical scenario, Jake Paul survived until round 6, and that right there is Jake's entire argument. He lasted 4 rounds longer than Francis, so in his mind, that somehow makes him better. That's exactly what Jake said on December 23rd on Impulsive, while still slurring his words from surgery. He said, "I told everyone I would do better than Francis. Francis kinda has no chin. Francis is low-key soft. I'll fight Francis." And hearing that, all you can really say is, wow, this is the idea. Jake actually seems to believe Francis might take the fight. He says, Francis kinda got no chin. Francis is low-key soft. Think about that for a second. This is Jake Paul, with his jaw wired shut, calling out the hardest hitting heavyweight in MMA history, and boldly claiming that man has no chin. Let's slow this down and really explain how insane that sounds. Francis Ngannou's knockout power isn't just height, it's been scientifically measured. The UFC tested his punching power using special equipment, and the results were shocking. Francis Ngannou's punch registered at 129.61 units, which is the same force as being hit by a Ford Escort going full speed. He can generate more power with one punch than a heavyweight boxer swinging a sledgehammer. Just look at what he's done in real fight. Think about his knockout of Alistair Overeem. The punch was so violent that Overeem's mouthpiece flew into the 5th row. He was already unconscious before he hit the canvas. Or look at his fight with Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Rozenstruik was winning that fight, and with only 20 seconds left, Ngannou landed one punch, and the fight was instantly over. That is the man Jake Paul is calling soft. Rozenstruik's face was completely crushed. And then there's Ngannou's knockout of Cain Velasquez, a former UFC heavyweight champion and one of the all-time greats. Ngannou finished him in an astonishing 26 seconds. And yet Jake Paul, with a freshly broken jaw, thinks Francis has no chin just because Anthony Joshua knocked him out. Here's the big flaw in Jake's thinking, the blind spot. Anthony Joshua didn't knock out Francis Ngannou because Francis has a weak chin. Joshua knocked him out because Joshua is one of the very best heavyweight boxers in the world, a true generational talent. Francis, for all his raw power, is still just a boxer with 2 professional fights under his belt. Joshua has knocked out legends like Vladimir Klitschko, Dillian White, Dominic Breazeale, Alexander Povetkin, and Kubrat Pulev. These are elite heavyweights, champions and top contenders. Joshua's knockout power is simply on another level. Getting knocked out by Anthony Joshua doesn't mean your chin is weak. It means you got hit by one of the hardest punchers in the history of boxing. And here's what Jake is completely ignoring. Francis Ngannou nearly beat Tyson Fury in his very first boxing match. He dropped Fury in round 3, made the fight highly competitive, and only lost by a controversial split decision. That's a serious showing for someone new to boxing. Jake Paul, on the other hand, in our hypothetical, got knocked out by Anthony Joshua in 6 rounds, but only after running, clinching, and basically wrestling to the first 5 rounds. He survived that long knot because he was skilled, because Joshua was being incredibly patient. Even Eddie Hearn, Joshua's own promoter, pointed this out after the real Joshua Ngannou fight. He said the most fascinating thing was that Jake didn't get flatlined by Joshua's right hand. Many heavyweights would have been knocked out cold by that same punch, including Francis Ngannou in a very similar scenario. So Jake thinks surviving a right hand that knocked out Francis somehow proves he's better. But the truth is there's critical context. Joshua wasn't going all out right away. He was pacing himself, taking his time, because Jake was running, making the fight messy, and Joshua didn't want to tire himself out chasing him. Against Ngannou, Joshua had a completely different approach. He wanted a statement win to erase his loss to Dubois and prove he was still elite. He came in aggressive, hunting the knockout, and got it in round 2. Different fights, different strategies, completely different circumstances. Jake lasting longer doesn't make him better. It just shows Joshua handled the 2 fights differently. Jake ignores all that context. He just sees, I lasted 6 rounds, Francis lasted 2. Therefore, I'm better. And now he's calling out Francis. Here's where where it gets even more interesting. This isn't the first time Jake has gone after Francis. Back in November 2025, in our hypothetical timeline, Jake was supposed to fight Gervonta "Tank" Davis, the undefeated and dangerous lightweight champion. But Tank pulled out due to legal trouble and a domestic violence lawsuit, canceling the fight. Jake suddenly needed a replacement fast because he already had his Netflix fight booked for December 19th. Jake couldn't afford to lose that prime spot, so his team reached out to Francis Ngannou. One fight, Jake Paul. December 19th, big money. They pitched. Francis publicly shut it down on TMZ. His answer was simple and direct. How do you go from Gervonta Davis to me? Davis is a fantastic boxer and a one-shot knockout artist. But come on, we're on a whole different level. It doesn't make sense. I'm not just talking about numbers. I'm not interested. He wasn't what he was looking for right now. Francis rejected the fight, saying it didn't fit his career and flat out stating that Jake wasn't on his level. Unsurprisingly, Jake lost it. He took to Twitter, calling Francis scared, light work, and stuck in mud. Francis fired back with a legendary response. Choose your words wisely, boy. I agree you need someone to discipline you for what you did to Mike Tyson, but stay in your lane. Savage. He reminded Jake to stay in his lane, called him boy, and made it clear he wasn't on Francis's level. So Anthony Joshua stepped in, took the fight, made millions, knocked Jake out, and became a hero in the process. Meanwhile, Francis, watching from the sidelines, was probably thinking, I could have taken that payday. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Anthony Joshua reportedly made a staggering $40 to $60 million for that fight. Francis turned down a similar offer, and now he's watching Joshua cash that massive check. Did Francis miss out? That's a huge amount of money to pass up, especially for a fight he might have won easily. But Francis has his reasons. He's carefully rebuilding his boxing career, aiming for real fights, like a Tyson-Fury rematch, Alexander Usyk or Deontay Wilder. Fighting Jake Paul is a step down. It's admitting you're a novelty act, the same path Mike Tyson took when he fought Jake at 58. Francis wants to be respected as a serious boxer, not treated as a spectacle or a payday for YouTubers. That's why he said no. But now, after seeing just how much Joshua earned, and after Jake called him out again with those bold insults, maybe Francis rethinks it. Because as delusional as Jake's argument is, it's actually smart promotion. He's literally telling the world, I lasted longer than you against Anthony Joshua. Here's the situation. Jake is out there saying, I have a better chin than you. I beat you in a boxing match. Now Francis is in a tricky spot. If he ignores Jake and stays silent, it could look like he's scared, like he's avoiding the fight. But if he accepts there's a big upside, he makes millions, beats a YouTuber easily, and gets revenge for all the insults. The downside, though, is catastrophic. If Francis takes the fight and loses, it's game over. His boxing career would be finished. Losing to Jake Paul would destroy his credibility. That's a harsh calculation. High reward, but insanely high risk. Jake's business partner, Makisa Badirian, put perfectly back in November. Francis cannot afford to lose to Jake Paul, especially after already being knocked out by Anthony Joshua. If he loses, no serious boxer will ever step in the ring with him again. He becomes a joke, a sideshow. On the other hand, if Francis wins, it's easy money, a huge payday, and honestly very little risk, because despite all his bravado, Jake Paul is a real threat to Ngannou. So what's a smart move? Option 1. Ignore Jake, don't respond, and stay focused on real boxing. Go after a Tyson-Fury rematch, fight Deontay Wilder, or face another legitimate top-level opponent. Option 2 is simple. Take the Jake Paul fight, make the money, beat him decisively, and move on. Option 3. Keep trolling Jake without ever actually fighting him. Get all the attention, drama, and engagement, but avoid the real risk. Right now, Francis seems to favor option 3. He's already put Jake in his place before, telling him to stay in his lane, but he hasn't agreed to fight. As of December 2025, Francis has responded to Jake's latest jaw wired shut call-out. No tweets, no interviews, just silence. And honestly, that's probably the smartest move. Responding would only give Jake exactly what he wants: attention, engagement, and drama. Ignoring him, that's the real power move. It says, you're not even worth my time. But here's the reality. This fight will probably happen eventually. Why? Jake Paul is relentless. He'll keep calling out Francis, keep insulting him, and keep making it impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, Francis's PFL contract is expiring soon, meaning he'll be a free agent, needing money, needing fights. Jake Paul, for all his bluster, is offering both. My prediction? This fight happens once Jake's jaw fully heals and Francis finishes his PFL obligations. Netflix or PFL will promote it, guaranteeing a massive payday for both fighters. When it comes to Francis Ngannou, he'd knock out Jake Paul in 2 rounds, maybe even less. And here's the fundamental truth Jake doesn't get. Lasting longer against Anthony Joshua doesn't make you better than Francis. It just means Joshua chose to take his time with you. Francis is a completely different beast. He doesn't need 6 rounds. He needs 60 seconds. One punch, what the UFC measured as a full-force forward escort punch, lands on Jake's chin and it's over. No getting up, no recovery. Just lights out. Jake can talk all the trash he wants. Claim Francis has no chin. Say he's soft. But the moment they step into the ring, reality hits. And reality is this. Francis Ngannou is the hardest hitting heavyweight in combat sports history. Jake Paul is a YouTuber who just got his jaw broken by Anthony Joshua. This isn't a fair fight. It isn't competitive. Frankly, it's almost a murder. But will it make spectacular television? Absolutely. And in 2025, that's what matters most. Welcome to modern boxing, where getting knocked out doesn't stop you from calling out killers, where confidence matters more than reality, and where Jake Paul, jaw wired shut, genuinely thinks he can beat Francis Ngannou. Good luck with that, Jake.